The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
The Attitude Era is widely considered by many as the greatest product the WWE has ever had. Now, relive the entire journey with exclusive commentary, insights, and episodic discussion with head writer Vince Russo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Raw, What It Was Good For, the April 27th edition. Jeff Lane and myself will be taking a look at. Jeff Lane, how you doing? I know you've been under the weather, Jeff, but you're a trooper to make it to this podcast today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing better. Yeah, I had a rough few days there over Christmas and stuff.
Yesterday, I'm watching this episode from 1998, and I'm watching, Austin and Vince and Brisco as the referee. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, for God's sake, I wrote this, but yet I'm captivated by this, and I believe this story. Like, I believe it. I mean, the way Vince played his part, and Austin, and even Brisco, and Dude Love, like, I believe the story.
This one's in Hampton, Virginia. I've said this numerous times so far, and we're only in April of 98, and here's another monumental episode of Raw that people look back on as game changers from the Monday Night War. How this worked out on the schedule, you want to talk about karma, fate, I don't know, you were there. But when you're looking at this, and WCW is right down the road, the same. I mean, what if the towns didn't line up like this? This would have never happened.
Right,
you know what I mean? It's so I'd love to get your whole thoughts into that, and we will get into that. But man, did the cards align for this one. So we open up. This is the night after Unforgiven. So we see all that. It ends with the shot of Austin swinging the chair, where he hits Vince. And Michael Cole says Vince McMahon is on his way to the arena. So before we even get into the show, right in the opening video package, the viewers told Vince McMahon's on his way to the arena. And then we start out and we get, Jim Ross. Will this be the night that Vince McMahon fires Stone Cold Steve Austin? Earlier today, DX launched an assault on WCW. So, man, if who's changing the channel when you hear that?
Bro, that's my first note is DX assault. Where are you going with a question mark? I mean, you open the out of the gate with that. Where are you go? Like, honestly, bro, at that point in time, let's take 1998 to 2014. At that point in time, we see DX, we see Hunter going up and down the thing. At that point in time, you can literally sit in your – this is, again, bro, this goes back to it's a different time. You can literally sit in your chair and say, okay, what on TV right now could possibly be better than this? That you can say that. No matter all the channels right now, what can possibly be better than this? Today you're saying – everything on every channel is better than this, whether it's a cooking show, whether it's some kind of Housewives of Atlanta, everything else is better than this. Whereas back then, like you don't have to switch. There's nothing else better than this on television, and you know it.
So we see we see the first video, and I mean, you jump in whenever you want to tell the stories of how this came to be, all that stuff, because I know I'm interested to hear it. I know the brand wants to hear it. This is one of the biggest things of all time in wrestling television, in my opinion. But we see the intro video, and Triple H is readying the troops. Very humorous, Billy Gunn with the at ease, and he's got the rocket between his legs. China hitting Road Dogg in the balls. The Jeep with the rocket launcher. Like, I know you've briefly told this story of how that came, but you're like, let's get a rocket launcher. Okay, we got a rocket launcher. Just amazing. But the one thing I get, that brings me back watching this, and I was just curious of who the guy was that was driving the Jeep. So I don't know if you know that or not, but this is so funny. Like, did you know at the time? I'm assuming like how great these guys were in this performance. They were attacking the enemy. They were essentially sticking up for the entire WWF. You know what I mean? So they weren't heels for the WWF in these videos. Very humorous. Did you realize like at the time how much this would make them baby faces just by these things?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And bro, they were baby faces the minute they went out. After this aired, they were baby faces the minute they were out. Jeff, I got a note here that honestly, this had to be the way this was set up. This had to be the greatest hook in the history of professional wrestling, because these guys are actually going to the WCW building. Now, let me point out, Jeff, because I always got to point out these little tidbits with these a-holes that put words in my mouth and believe everything that the Wade Kellers and the Dave Meltzers and the Brian Alvarez and all the rest of the poop stains, say about me. It's become gospel. Bro, you know how Vince Russo takes credit for everything, and, things that were bad weren't him. He doesn't give credit to everybody else. I remember this specifically, and I want to give shout out and credit where credit is due. And obviously, Jeff, I don't have to, because nobody would know this, okay? The first one, when Triple H is addressing the troops, that was my pre-tape. I set that up, okay? Now, what happened, bro, was they actually had to drive to the building. Okay. In the meantime, bro, I've got a whole other show I got to produce at our arena. So obviously I was able to do this first one with them, but I wasn't able to go. I had to do everything else back at the arena. Bruce Pritchard took over. So everything after the first one, all that stuff was produced by Bruce Pritchard, who did a phenomenal job. But I just wanted to throw that out there as, I take credit for everything, and I don't give anybody credit, and I single-handedly created the attitude. No, Bruce produced every one of those after the first one. And I mean, I think he did a tremendous job with both. As we break them down, bro, as you go through the show, there's just a couple key things that I want to point out that, people, they bury it, 17 years later, hoping you forget. Well, I'm here to bring them up again and shed some light on stuff. But as we go through them, I'll point that out to you.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Bruce, because there's a shot later where you see him walking with DX. So I was going to ask about that and like with the cops and stuff. But from your recollection, and I know you're like me in this sense, where a lot of details with time just disappear. From your best recollection, how did this develop? Who made the realization that these towns are lining up on the same night? They're right down the road. Like, how did this all come to be, man? Because this is one of the biggest shots fired in the Monday night, probably the biggest shot fired in the Monday night. I will tell you again,
bro, and I don't care. I don't care who says what. Okay, I was there. I pitched this to Vince McMahon. Bro, this was another case of when Vince was walking around with a black eye and they wanted to just ignore it. And I sat there and said, are you freaking nuts? Bret Hart just punched Vince McMahon in the eye. I convinced them to, Bret screwed Bret promo, which kind of catapulted it. This was the same thing. Like, wait a minute. The buildings are literally walking distance between each other, and we're not going to take advantage of that. So from the get-go, I pitched the idea to Vince McMahon. And, as I said, put DX in the Army gear, the whole nine yards. I wrote down on the format they get they're driving a rocket launcher, never thinking in a million years that they would be able to get that. And, Kevin Dunn, bro, everybody tears to shreds, and he's an idiot, and he's this, and he's that. Well, guess what? Kevin Dunn, head of the TV department, somehow, some way got a rocket launcher. And I'd love to hear that story, bro, because I still don't know how they got it. I mean, I never really asked. It was just there. I would love to hear that story. But again, This was, they are so close to us. If we don't take advantage of this, shame on us. And I didn't have to talk Vince into it. You know, once I pitched it and, you know, this is the idea and this is what I think we should do, you know, he was totally on board with it and we move forward.
Do you remember specifically why you chose DX? Was it you just knew they were the best for the job? Was it because Shawn just got fired? Was there anything?
No, just they would be the most entertaining. You know, I mean, there was no question about that. They would be the most entertaining. And, you know, bro, as we get deeper into this story, you know, I'm going to point out, you know, obviously there was a little going on with Kevin and Scott at WCW at the time. You knew there was a lot personally involved in this with Sean Waltman, who just left, with Triple H, who was friends with Scott. So you knew there was a lot of personal issues involved here. So because of that, I knew, number one, these guys are going to be entertaining. Number two, there really are some personal issues that's going to come out as we film this.
I popped huge at the whatever Billy was wearing on his head.
I wrote the same thing down. The branches in his head, bro, were totally ridiculous.
Yeah. We know this is coming up, so that we were left at a nice cliffhanger. They take off. We're told they're heading towards Norfolk, I think it was, or whatever, Norfolk Coliseum, wherever Nitro was that night. They're on their way there. So we finally get to something in the arena, and it's a tag match. It's Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart versus Mark Henry and The Rock. The rest of the nation is out there with Henry and The Rock. Owen starts, but The Rock wants Ken Shamrock in. So Owen tags in Ken Shamrock. Shamrock goes to give him a double high five, but Owen kicks him in the nuts, takes him down with a spinning heel kick. The nation hit the ring. They all start putting the boots to Shamrock, so the ref calls for the bell. Match is thrown out. Owen Hart grabs a chair. The nation is all holding down Shamrock, so Owen puts the chair around Shamrock's ankle, climbs up the turnbuckles, jumps down on his leg. Actually, he did that twice. Steve Blackman comes to help. They're outnumbered, so he gets taken down very quickly. Owen ends up putting the sharpshooter on Ken Shamrock. Farouk comes out, same thing. They lose the numbers game. Nation is on top of these guys. The refs and some WWF backstage officials are trying to pull them apart. Owen bites Ken Shamrock's ear, and there's blood all over Owen's lip. I thought this was great. And then you know, they finally get him pulled apart. I had a couple notes here before I get your thoughts. One is that the first thing I thought is how you've been harping about how Dean Ambrose and the Usos have not been coming out to help Roman Reigns. You know, instantly here comes Ken Shamrock and Farouk Steve Blackman and Farouk to help their buddy Shamrock. Even though they're outnumbered, they still come out to help. So I immediately correlated that to what's going on with today's product. Number two, the biting. I don't know. I feel like Owen got his lip busted and came up on the spot. I'm going to pretend to bite his ear and look like I don't know. I just thought that was brilliant. Excellent visual all around. It appears Owen has either just lost it or he's joining the nation. It's not clear at this point. It will be clear in a future episode. But what's your thoughts on this overall?
Well, a couple of things stood out to me. First of all, it's like coming off of the pay-per-view and everything that has happened with Owen and DX, it makes perfect sense that he needs backup. Like the story it makes perfect sense. Like we don't need to tell you why. We set it up at the pay-per-view the night before where he said enough. Yeah, he basically said enough is enough. I'm not going to take it anymore. He's been having to take on not Hunter, but Hunter and now China and then all of DX. He's been outnumbered. Finally now he needs help. So he's going to do a Nation of Domination a favor, and they in return are going to be his backup. Okay, that's clear. The second thing I loved about this, bro, is when Farouk hit and when Blackman hit, the baby faces didn't powder. You know what I'm saying, bro? Those guys were outnumbered, so the heels knew we're going to beat these guys down. Fast forward to 2015, if five guys are dogpiling one and one baby face hits the ring, everybody else is powdering out. This is called heat. This is called heat. Obviously, it's a 5-on-1 or a 5-on-2. The heels have the advantage. The heels are going to get their heat. That's exactly what they did. You don't that would not happen today. The baby faces would hit, the heels would powder. So I mean, those were the two things that really stuck out. I loved, JR screaming Owen Hart is biting Shamrock. Was just incredible. But the way you could see Owen Hart switch from 1 week to the next, like enough is enough. That's it. You broke me. I'm done. Yeah, I just think it played off really well here.
So next is the Love Shack. Dude Love comes out on the stage with two girls in thongs. I remember this, dude. Like, memories came back. Like, I was sitting in my dorm room, like, watching this for the first time. I remember I had the biggest crush on the tall one of these two girls. And when she walked out, it was like love at first sight all over again for me. I was like, oh, man, I remember this girl. Because I believe they're the same girls that come out the next time when Vince is dancing with them. I don't know. I just remembered that girl. I had a thing for that girl. But dude comes out with the girls, and he's recapping what happened at Unforgiven. Of course, he's playing it up his version. Austin was trying to get counted out. He took the easy way out. Vince McMahon had to talk him back to getting into the ring, and then when Austin realized the momentum was swinging towards the dude and he was going to lose, that's when he took his cheap shot at Vince. Dude puts over how the ladies wanted it when he got back, but because of the match, dude just needed to be held that night. I popped for that. And so he says we have three choices right now with what happened at the pay-per-view. The first is to go find Shawn Michaels, who was the last champ, put him against Dude Love to see who the champion should be. The second one is to have a tournament with Dude as the number one seed. And the third choice is to fire Steve Austin, strip him of the belt, and hand it to the Dude. So those are the three choices he's laid out. JR, well, I don't think that's going to happen, the way he's selling it. So Dude is upset in a comical way about not getting the belt. And obviously this is setting up for what's going to happen further in the night. So thoughts on this, on the Love Shack?
Well, bro, the thing that cracked me up is like I'm watching this, and Jeff, like I'm cringing a little bit because I'm knowing how uncomfortable the girls are for Mick. Yeah, bro, this Mick, first of all, he's got his wife used to be a model. Her name is Colette. She's the nicest, most beautiful human being. At this point, he had a very young family. And like, he was very uncomfortable, in stuff like this. So like, I'm watching this with these two girls fawning all over him. And I'm saying to myself, Mick is hating this. You know what I mean? But bro, there was just something that I always got a kick out of. Just something about, Dude Love dancing, which just always freaking popped me because he was just so awkward and just so, but then, bro, he went from that character to like a complete, heel, by the time you get to the end of the show and he attacks Austin. But that's the only thing that stuck in my mind, just knowing what a family guy he was and knowing how uncomfortable the girls were for him.
After that, two DX gets separated by commercial. The first one is Triple H is on the speaker, and he's asking the WCW fans, do you think Eric Bischoff sucks? Do you think WCW sucks? DX is starting the war against WCW, and we're firing the first shot. And they close up on the cannon firing a shot. One thing I know you said you weren't there at this point, that this is where Bruce Pritchard had took over, but like, how did this – Did you get to any details of like there's cops involved, especially later on when they go right up to the arena door and you see like the usher guy who's looking irritated, like, but there's cops with them. What was the deal in getting like police involved with this? Do you know anything about that?
Bro, I honestly don't know. Again, that's Kevin Dunn. That's Kevin Dunn foreseeing there may be an issue. We got to get cops. We got to let them know what's going on. I'm sure they talked the cops into this is part of the show. They didn't lay out to the cops, oh, we're actually going to the enemy's front door and knocking. I'm sure they worked the cops. But, unfortunately, bro, I was so wrapped up in the show at the arena, I never really got the nuts and bolts of it. So, like, I wish now, hindsight being 2020, I wish I would have asked Bruce about a lot of this stuff, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll bring him on again and talk about this. But that's again, bro. That's just Kevin Dunn, and like I said, I'm sure they worked the police. This is part of the show. We don't want the fans, attacking us. Whatever the case may be.
And after the commercial, we get another one, and Triple H is interviewing a female fan. He asks her, and not from experience, he says, if WCW sucks. She says, of course. And then he asked her who rules professional wrestling, and she says DX. So I like how these are short and sweet, and they're thrown in to remind the audience that you better not turn the channel. We're not done here with these guys. They're going after WCW here. So next is the Headbangers versus Terry Funk and Too Cold Scorpio. And when the match starts, we see Vince McMahon arriving backstage with Patterson and Brisco. Vince looking very irritated. The match ends when the referee gets shoved down by members of both teams, so he calls for the bell. And the teams continue to brawl afterwards. And while they're brawling, we go to another DX footage, and this is the one they go up to the door of the fan entrance, like the main entrance to the arena. There's I remember the old guy there, like the usher, just wondering, like, what the heck is this about? Like, he just looks very confused and irritated. But he asks how many of them have any of the free tickets that WCW gives away to fill up their TV. And then X-Pac says, he yells, "What's up?" to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. And Triple H starts a chant to "Let my people go," referencing to Nash and Hall, of course.
Well, bro, let me first say the match. Something that was very poignant in this match, bro, it was always one of the rules of wrestling, bro, and they were very, very touchy about this, bro, for a very long time. When a wrestler was, beyond his prime and kind of in the twilight of his career, when he was a little older, you never mentioned the age, ever. Like, that was such a no-no in the wrestling business. But like here, we've got a 53-year-old man competing, doing unbelievable things. How does that hurt us by pointing out that Terry Funk is 53 years old? We know he's been around for a while. We know that this guy, we know he's old. The fact that a 53-year-old man is involved in this craziness is what makes him special. So I had to convince them of that, bro. Because in the past, like I said, you did not mention age. You could not say how old the wrestler was. Bro, one thing I want to say about this too is, listen, this was live TV at its best. We did not know what was going to happen. Okay, bro? My whole thing was, regardless of what happens, we were, still like on the short side of the war at that point, okay? My whole mindset was, people are going to watch this and they're going to say, I can't believe they have the balls to do this. I can't believe these guys are actually doing this and have the balls to do it. That's what I was looking for, because, bro, we didn't know what we were going to get. It was all live. We were going to that back door. Is the truck going to drive right in? Are wrestlers going to greet you there? Are Hall and Nash going to come out? Is Eric going to come out? We don't know. It's totally an uncontrolled environment. But my whole thing was, I wanted people to walk away saying, holy crap, the balls of the WWE to do that. And, I think at the end of the day, that was accomplished.
So after that, we see they're still fighting, the Headbangers and the Funks, and the refs are breaking it up. And we're going to commercial, and JR says Vince McMahon will be here next. So right back from commercial, thought it was a very cool camera angle. We start with behind Vince walking out. I just thought that was a cool touch by director and stuff. Massive heat. Like you notice this every week, how the heat just gets louder and louder for Vince every single week. And at this point, we're still months away from him having any theme music, so there's no music to drown out the heat. I mean, you get the crystal clear. They're starting to really hate this guy. So Vince says he knows that Austin was trying to take his head off. Says he sustained a mild concussion. And then he says, should I fire Austin? And he says, not yet. He has other plans. And that those plans are tonight, Austin's going to defend the WWF Championship against Goldust. And there's going to be a special referee. So he introduces the man who's going to be the referee, and it's Gerald Brisco. And I know you were popping it just looking at his face walking down this.
How about I'm popping because he's asking Brisco, are you afraid of Stone Cold Steve Austin? And Brisco doesn't say, no. He says, as long as Mr. McMahon, as you say, he's going to be fired if he touches me. As long as you said that, no, I'm not afraid of him. Which was so classic. Rather than just say, no, I'm not afraid of Austin. As long as he understands if he touches me. I mean, bro, that was just epic. That was epic, bro.
Yeah. Vince says if Austin lays a finger on Brisco, his contract will be terminated. The title will be revoked. So that's when he starts to ask these questions. He asks him if he'll be unbiased. This is probably the most defined yes, sir, Mr. McMahon. This is the one that was replayed over and over. That really, this I think this is the one that became his catchphrase. And then, yes, he asked him if he's afraid. That's where he talks about what you said. Now, wait a minute. You said, as long as he can't touch me, then no, I'm not afraid. And then, so I love this little touch because obviously you would say this whole deal was with Austin is that Vince wants a respectable champion. So here he is putting Goldust in the spot. And Vince says, what type of representative would Goldust be as champion? And then he just says, plain out, well, anybody would be better than the champion we have now. I just at that point, I mean, you can just say it screw it. I don't care. Anybody can be champion as long as it's not Austin. I don't care if it's this character that is so over the top that makes people uncomfortable. So immediately after that, we see Austin backstage throwing stuff, and he's upset. So thoughts on this overall?
Bro, I'm surprised you didn't point this out because you get every little thing, and it amazes me. But I'm surprised you didn't point this out because it was also a very small nuance. Vince threw the term out there, a time and honored tradition, which he used throughout the whole Bret Hart thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally missed that.
Yeah, so he was basically saying Austin's gonna get screwed the same way Bret Hart got screwed. I mean, that's why he said that. But bro, something you just went over at the beginning. This was the old Vince, bro. After watching him last night, I don't know if he can still do this. But you mentioned earlier, bro, about he said he had a mild concussion. But no, bro, he didn't just say he had a mild concussion. He said I had a mild concussion, dizziness, and there was even some nausea. Bro, that is so effing classic, bro. It's not even fun. Anybody else would have said I suffered a mild concussion. But when he throws in mild, nobody else would have done that but Vince McMahon. But oh my God, bro, just so entertaining on every front you can possibly imagine. And Brisco, just unbelievable, bro.
So then we have
I wonder, will you watch it because there were a lot of close-ups of Brisco, bro? I gotta ask him one day how many times he's had his nose busted. Have you ever gotten a good look at Brisco's nose, bro? Yeah. He's probably got his nose busted 10 times and fixed it 7.
So next is the DX skit with the closing of the gate. So what happens here is they make it to the backstage entrance, I guess, of the arena where the people on the show go in. So they're driving this tank thing down the rampway. You see the gate closing. So we hear comments from Triple H and the Outlaws and X-Pac, like WCW is a bunch of cowards, things like that. Triple H is saying DX is standing at your door. Open the door. The Outlaws are knocking. Road Dogg says they want to talk to Mr. Bischoff. X-Pac says, asked Eric Bischoff to come out. He'll give him a chance to tell him why he fired him since he didn't have the guts to call him on the phone.
Bro, this is what I love about this. Let me take a little time with this, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
because people forget these things. Let me remind the people who want to paint themselves off as heroes and badasses and bullies and geniuses and all the things they want to paint themselves off as 17 years later. Okay, bro, I have to go back to a recent post that JBL just made on Facebook that somebody sent me. Obviously, I don't read JBL's Facebook. They sent it to me on Twitter, so I read it, where he said, me and Eric Bischoff, he painted the whole picture. Eric's a genius. I believe everything Eric says. Me and Eric are good friends. Well, it's not a surprise to me that JBL and Eric are good friends because these were the two biggest bullies in the business I've ever met. Okay, bro? Something happened in both their lives that they, at one point in time, they made a decision that they were going to bully people if they were ever in a position to. So I don't know if they got bullied when they were smaller. I don't know if their parents got, but something happened that at a point in their lives, they both decide we're going to bully people whenever we get into a position of power. So it's no surprise to me that these two are the bestest of friends, BFFs for life, good for them, bro. Here's the thing that I love. Eric Bischoff, the biggest bully and the biggest arrogant prick that I ever worked with in the wrestling business. And you don't believe me, bro? I don't talk about it a lot, and I wouldn't talk about it at all if he didn't fire the first shot with the liar comment when he knew they weren't going to give me a comeback. I can go on here and call Vince Russo whatever I want. JBL is not going to put him on his show. So, he decides to call me a liar. Well, good. Call me a liar because I'd rather be a liar than an arrogant prick. I'd rather be a liar than to have people absolutely hate me, and people in the wrestling business absolutely hated Eric Bischoff. And if you don't believe me, like I was about to say, there's an interview with Magnus in a couple of weeks, and you'll hear one of the boys tell you what it's really like working with Eric Bischoff. And obviously, bro, it wasn't all hunky-dory if Triple H is wearing a patch on his sleeve that says POWCW, Prisoners of WCW, referring to Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who, for whatever reason, did not want to work there anymore. We forget these little details in history. But here's the greatest thing in the world for me. Okay, here's Mr. getting off of being a bully. Okay, bro, big drives the hog. Bro, what's the thing in North Dakota? Sturgis goes to Sturgis every year with all his hog buddies. All right, here's Mr. Big Shot. Here's Mr. Chip on the shoulder. Here's Mr. Arrogant. Here comes DX to the back door, and what does he do, bro? Like a little girl, like a little wuss, like a little puss, he orders to have them shut the door. There's the big bad bully, Eric Bischoff, when he comes face to face with a confrontation. Now, bro, here's what you have to understand, Jeff. This is a live show. If Eric Bischoff is waiting at that back door, or wrestlers are waiting at that back door, whoever, Ming, maybe Eric gets the three toughest guys at WCW and puts them at the door, and Triple H sees Ming and craps himself because, according to Vampiro, Ming took down telephone poles as he was walking down the road, right? But, bro, here's the thing you got to understand. If the gate remained open and those guys drove up, okay, first of all, once they drive inside, they're trespassing, they're breaking the law. They could be arrested at that point. Number one. Number two, bro, you got to understand this. If anybody at WCW appeared on WWE's live TV without signing a release, without giving permission, do you know the lawsuit that WWE would have had in their hands. You can't show Eric Bischoff on your television without his approval, or Scott Hall or Kevin Nash. So first of all, I don't know what we're thinking about, because we're driving up to the front gate, to the gate, not knowing what the outcome of this thing is. It's live TV, bro. We legally can't show these guys on television. So first of all, Eric knew this was coming, because during Nitro, they're watching Raw, bro. They know what's coming on. They know these guys are coming. Rather than put a plan in place and know they can't show us, they can't film us. We can.
I thought this was taped earlier in the day, though. Those things.
Well, even if that was the case, that's even better. That's even better, bro, because now there is a chance to edit any of that stuff out if we have to. That explains our part. But the fact of the matter is, we can't show any of this on television.
Right.
So he knows, bro. Trust me, bro. You don't think Hunter's not on the phone with freaking Kevin and Scott and letting them know, oh, by the way, we're going to be knocking on the back door in 15 minutes. They know it's coming. So knowing that we can't do anything with the footage, they could have done whatever they wanted to do. They were in control of that situation. But what does Mr. Bully do when he comes face to face with confrontation? Lower the gates. Lower the gates. Let's move to the other side of the building. Let's all go to catering. Let's lower the gates. People seem to forget that. And, now as he wants to, paint himself as this James Dean, and I'm a tough guy, and I'm this and I'm that. The minute those guys showed up, bro, rather than confronting anybody, he freaking tucked his tail between his legs and he ran the other way. One of the greatest what ifs for me in the history of wrestling was, I would love to know what if he was at the back door. What if he would have had some of his guys that would have done anything for him, that used to be so far up his backside because he would pay them ungodly amounts of money that they didn't deserve? What would have happened if they would have greeted DX at the back door? That's what I would have loved to see. But my point is, we would not have been allowed to use the footage, bro. And he knew that. So it didn't matter. But he chose to just close the door, which really, again, this was the equivalent, bro, of the Mick Foley just won the WWE title, don't put the show on. Because the minute you lowered the door, you said, we're pussies. We're a bunch of pussies. We don't know how to handle this. You've won this round. That's exactly what the coming down of the door exemplifies. And this is why people should be paying less than $1 a week for this show, because you're not going to hear the truth and you're not going to get the inside from anybody else. So, that's why everybody, that's why I tell the story, because, again, not for anything, but, Eric goes on the WWE network. He's the big deal. He's the tough guy. He's the genius. He's all these things. And when push came to shove, bro, and he was in the face of confrontation 17 years ago, everybody saw what happened. It was clear to everybody. Everybody saw what happened. Was he there to greet them? Was he there to meet them? Was he there to have a confrontation? No. He simply shut down the door and moved away from the conflict and moved away from the confrontation. He's a guy that says, what is it? A controversy creates cash. Well, here he had all the controversy in the world. Whatever he wanted, he had the enemy, and he could have met them head on if that's what he chose to do. As I said, we could not have used the footage. It would have been illegal for us to show any WCW talent on camera. So we could not have done that. So basically, at that point, all the cards is in his hands. Well, what did he do? He put him in a nice little deck. He tucked his little tail between his legs, and he walked to the other side of the building. That's a real tough guy for you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Is Jeff Jarrett versus Bradshaw. Club Kamikaze, as they're being called at this point, run in the ring and they attack Bradshaw again, which ends the match. There's a fourth guy now with them, and he has a mask on. And Taka Michinoku comes in to help Bradshaw, but they're both taken down by Club Kamikaze, who runs off at this point, and JR's got the hook. Who's this guy in the mask? Who's the fourth guy?
You know, bro, and it just goes to show me, I mean, here we were obviously trying to tie Bradshaw and Taka together. We thought there was going to be some comedy in, a redneck cowboy teaching, this guy from Japan, the way of the United States. But just the attempt, bro, to try to get everybody on TV, to try to get everybody over, to try to, give everybody something to do. That's all this was an attempt of. And we were trying to do this in a 2-hour show, bro, not a 3-hour show. So for all the shots JBL wants to take at me, he should kind of look back at this and say, you know what? That stupid Yankee from New York was actually trying to get me on the show. But, we'll look at it the other way.
I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for people that maybe haven't seen these shows before, but this is going to be the guy that's the leader of these guys.
Well, yeah, the guy that can talk, for them.
Right. Was this a deal where I'm just always curious about these things. Like, I know JR put the roster together. Vince, here's these guys, put them on the show. So you're giving these guys who came up with the guy to bring in this guy as the mouthpiece, as the storyline, as the leader of these guys? Was that something you had influence on?
Obviously, I don't know any of the Japanese talent. I never claimed to. So, I don't know. I don't know if there was a deal going on with Japan at the time. I don't know any of this, but it definitely would have. It would have been JR's area without a doubt.
So story yet to come, and my favorite part about that whole deal coming up is the guy's wife. Absolutely gorgeous. Can't wait till she's on the show again. So next is Kevin Kelly backstage with Dude Love, and he says, he tells Dude that he can't be happy with Goldust getting the title shot, and Dude, breaks out of his Dude Love character, and he says, this isn't the way things are supposed to work out. He wanted me to wear tie-dye. I wore tie-dye. He walks off from Kevin Kelly. He walks right by Vince McMahon, who's, he's got some papers. He's with some officials or agents or whoever those guys were. He walks right by Vince, and Vince steps out and says, "Hey, are you looking for me?" Dude gets in his face. He says, "I'm telling you, don't screw me. This is not what we talked about." Vince McMahon turns around, tells the camera to be cut off, starts flipping out. "That's my microphone. That's my camera. Shut it off, shut it off, shut it off."
I thought that whole piece was so well done, bro. Backstage, I mean, it really came off as real. Dude had really passed Vince, and he was mumbling and cutting a promo, and Vince, had to call after him. You got a problem, rather than right there. It was done in a very, very believable way. Vince is talking to his agents. One of them was Jack Lanza, which I love to see. Jack was clearly my mentor. Who was not allowed to talk to me anymore when I went to WCW, which is ridiculous. So I haven't talked to him since then. But he had a lot to do with teaching me, the ropes back then in the WWE. But I thought that piece was really, really well done.
Next is the New Age Outlaws versus DOA in a non-title match. First, Triple H, X-Pac, and China come out, and as you mentioned earlier, huge babyface pop as soon as they came out, instant from those vignettes. So Triple H goes through the "Let's get ready to suck it" promo. Then the Outlaws come out on scooters making fun of DOA. So DOA comes out, and then they LOD, and Sonny comes out as DOA's backup. I got a kick out. JR was so fired up, at the start of this match. He's going off on Triple H, yelling at Triple H. He's upset about Austin having to face Goldust. He's upset that the titles aren't on the line here. I just thought it was I don't know.
He said, no, I did too, bro, because I got the line. The line he said was, "It's like working in a junior high school class." That's what he said.
Yeah, and then you hear Road Dogg at one point say, "Hey, there's two All-Americans in there," and Jared's like, "Oh yeah, real original. I've heard that one before." Yeah, I just get JR. Oh man, he's so the way he gets so involved with the show is just unbelievable. So what happens in this match is we get like the Killer Bees type, switch. DOA does the switch with the Twins, and they get the roll up and they get the win on the cheap win against the Outlaws in the non-title match. So Outlaws are still the champions.
Bro, what about the thing that was amazing to me was the fact that the babyfaces cheated. Which I thought the illegal man got the pin, which I thought was phenomenal. The baby faces cheated. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine, bro, that two bikers that have probably killed people and beat people up pretty bad, could you believe that they actually cheated to win a match?
Next is Undertaker versus Barry Windham. This match was 59 seconds. Undertaker chokeslam tombstone, squashed Windham, and then gets on the microphone, tells Kane that last night when he set him on fire, that was just the beginning. He calls him out to finish it, and he says he's not going anywhere until Kane comes out. So we go to commercial with that hook. The organ is so sinister. You know what I mean? That was just such great evil music for this guy. I'm sure that was a Jim Johnston deal, right? He's the one that did every song back then, right? So just such a great touch for that character. But so Kane and Paul Bearer come out after the commercial. Out to the stage, and Paul says that this has got to stop. It's got to come to the end. This is Undertaker was the one who was supposed to be burned, was supposed to be on fire at Unforgiven. He goes into heavy detail about Kane as a child, in the hospital, crying for his mommy, getting the burns scraped off with saline solution. Real detail into this stuff. And then he talks about how at last night's show, Undertaker, put the drum over his head. He got busted open on the stage, and when he woke up, he saw Kane's hand on fire, and he says what people don't understand is that it was his son whose hand was on fire. And we instantly go to commercial after that. Let me ask you this before we get into this story, but just real quick on this touch. When something like that happens and the announcers are completely silent and it's such a great touch, is that laid out beforehand?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yep. It's called just, the announcers layout. That means they don't say anything. Definitely. Yep.
So thoughts on that?
First of all, I thought I have a note here that Taker's jacket was awesome. Then I also have a note here, Jeff. Did you notice Taker had a teardrop on his face?
Yeah, he had that for a little bit, I think, when he was a babyface during this time.
Do you know what that means?
No.
Bro, I found out what that means, and I found out the hard way because it was very much reality. Bro, I had to I actually spoke at a prison once, bro, and after I gave my testimony, a lot of the prisoners came up afterwards and spoke to me. And bro, this was like a maximum security deal. These weren't traffic violators. These were the real deal, right, bro? So some guy comes up to me and had a long conversation with me, and I'll never forget it, bro. He's got a little teardrop tattooed on his eye, So I was talking to the guy, really nice guy, bro. I had a long talk with him. And then, he goes away, and I asked somebody who I was with, I said, from the prison, I said, does that teardrop mean anything? And bro, evidently that means if you have a teardrop tattooed there on your eye there, evidently that means you've killed somebody. So, that's why, because, after I had a conversation with somebody for 20 minutes, they smartened me up, and I'm like, yeah, that guy killed somebody. That's why he's in here. So when I saw the Taker thing, I was like, you know what? I bet you there are a lot of people that don't know what that means, but that's what it means.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's cool.
Yeah.
So we come back from commercial, and we get the replay, and JR explains that Paul Bearer just said that he's Kane's father. And, dude, Lawler here, this is one of the this is why people some people don't understand how much the announcers can add to the show. Lawler's reaction here, I rewound it and watched it twice because I was laughing so hard, and how excited he was that this means that Paul Bearer slept with the Undertaker's mother. He doesn't the big thing for him wasn't that Paul Bearer is Kane's dad. It was that Paul Bearer banged the Undertaker's mother. That was the big revelation for Lawler. I laughed so hard at this. He was so excited, man. Oh man, that's just great.
Well, bro, just the visual. I mean, we don't even have to know what like Undertaker's mother looked like that. That doesn't even play into the equation. Just the visual of Paul Bearer on top of another human being, bro.
Oh man, but this is going to lead into one of my favorite. I don't know if it's next week. It's an episode coming up. One of my favorite backstage segments with Paul Bearer talking to Lawler about this. I don't know if you remember that. I know there's a line in it specifically from your mouth because you make similar lines about your balls being in Fort Lauderdale and Lawler and Paul Bearer makes a comment about the Undertaker's. He had one of her legs in Los Angeles and the other one in New York. And I'll never forget that. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. And that's coming up, man. So I can't wait for that. So obviously,
bro, how funny would it? Now that you're saying that, I'm thinking, how great would it have been to do some kind of an angle with Paul Bearer as a ladies' man, bro? Oh man, that would have been phenomenal.
He could have pulled anything off, I think. So obviously, huge story to come here. This is not over with these two. Next, we get a pre-match promo type deal with Kevin Kelly interviewing Goldust, and then Dude attacks Goldust afterwards, yelling, "That's my shot," referencing that he should be getting the title.
I mean, which is great, bro. It's such an ongoing story. You don't see this anymore. It's just like I was surprised. I wasn't expecting, Mick to hit. And then he hit, and I'm like, it's just great. You're tying up every freaking loose end, especially he's going to come out later on in the match anyway. So now it makes even more sense. But just good stuff, bro.
Impromptu DX again to the ring, and this time they're not laughing. They're irritated and pissed off, and you can tell just by the way Triple H is walking to the ring. So he gets on the microphone. No fun and games. He said tonight was supposed to be a great night, and he tells DOA nobody's going to kill his buzz, and he puts his belt down on the mat, and he says that anybody with the guts can come out and face him one-on-one for the European Championship. 8-Ball comes out like he's going to accept, but then Dan Severn blows past him. Dan Severn runs in the ring to accept the challenge, and he's trying to get his shirt and tie off, and Jim Cornette doesn't want him to fight. So Cornette's trying to stop him from fighting him, and Cornette slaps him in the face, and Severn, flips out, takes him down with an armbar, and Cornette's out cold. The ref pulls him off, and we go to commercial. We come back, and Cornette's being helped out of the ring. This is the one thing I don't like. This is the one thing I didn't like on this show, and I always want to be honest about things. So I just want your take on this. This is I've never this happens all the time in wrestling. Happened before then, happens after. But now that this happened, to me, it doesn't make sense that, okay, it's over. Triple H leaves the ring. Why does Triple H still not want to fight somebody? Why does he still not want to put the title on the line just because Severn kicked Cornette's butt? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was the only thing on this show that I was
that's a great point, bro. That's an absolute great point. Yep.
But then listen, man,
there are a couple of things I didn't like on the show. I didn't like on the show when we didn't protect Austin when Dude Love cut the promo. Where was Austin?
Oh, at the beginning?
At the beginning. Now we could have had him arrive afterwards, or the announcers should have said he is so keep in mind, bro, the night before he took Vince out with a metal chair. So maybe he is preoccupied with what is Vince going to do to me? Well, what do I need to prepare myself for that he let the Dude Love promo go? But that was never understood. So I don't feel we did a good job protecting Austin there. I also, bro, where was Austin when Vince was in the ring?
Right. That's a good point because that was something that was done so well. Austin was always shown arriving to the arena after people were talking crap.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yep, that's a great point. Yep. Speaking of Austin, we go to Michael Cole with Austin. This promo, I watched it 4 times because the passion that Austin put into this promo, I encourage anybody to go back and watch this, or if you've already have, or if you didn't watch it, just go watch this. And I even noted this. It's at the 1 hour and 8-minute point on the network. This promo was absolutely unbelievable. And this was just a quick 45-second promo or whatever it was, just to hype the main event. The passion that this guy put into this promo, the anger that he had, this was not a wrestling promo. This was a guy that was fired up, upset. I mean, just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And if I was running a promo class at NXT, day 1, minute 1, sit down, I would put this on for them. This is the first thing they watch. And I would say by the time you get out of this class, that should be your goal. Because Steve Austin was absolutely unbelievable in this promo, man. Absolutely.
The only problem is, bro, 99.9% of those people do not have the ability to put themselves in the moment. The guy was so in the freaking moment, bro. He didn't have to worry about, memorizing lines or delivery. He didn't have to worry about any of that. These are the circumstances. This is the moment. This is what your character is faced with. Go out and cut the promo. It's that simple. Unfortunately, today, bro, a lot of people are not capable of doing that.
Maybe the best Val Venus vignette to this point.
Bro, I'm watching this vignette. And he's back in the seat. And all I'm thinking to myself is, okay, he's acting like a chick is going down on him. But I know we didn't do that. Like, we would not have gone that far. Like, I mean, literally, this is what I'm telling. I would not have gone that far that, some chick is blowing him on TV. And then, bro, when the girl came up, I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And then when he told her to go look for the keys again, I mean, bro, like I didn't even remember. I mean, you want to talk about pushing the envelope.
This is you can't push it more than this. And yeah, I mean, just the shock value of, I can't believe they did this on TV. Like, I mean, I remember this was like a weekly thing back then. I can't believe they're doing this. Just amazing,
bro.
Like, I don't know how this wasn't a TVMA. You know what I mean?
And this is exactly the reason that he was over the minute he came out, too.
Yeah. So next, after that, Mark Merrill's on his way to the ring. And I laughed so hard. Lawler tells JR that he dropped his keys under the table. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Oh, man. Like, this guy's unbelievable. He's so talented. So Mark Merrill comes to the ring by himself, calls out Sable. Sable comes out, and he tells her how she humiliated him last night at Unforgiven because she was standing in the ring and nothing but her bra and panties. So Sable says she's going to put Merrill in his place. He says, are you challenging me to a fight? And she says, give her 2 weeks to get ready, and in 2 weeks, she's going to kick his ass on Raw. So we're now set up. We know in 2 weeks that Sable is going to face Mark Merrill. Thoughts on the segment?
Yeah, I mean, bro, this is the kind of thing like, bro, nowadays Raw never promotes anything hardly for next week. We're making them wait 2 weeks for this. And like, this is the kind of thing where it's 2 weeks out. And like, I'm asking myself the question, what are they going to do with this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is a man, wrestling a woman, that was never really done back then. Like, how are they going to handle this? What are they going to do with this? So, bro, 2 weeks out, you've already planted the seed in my mind that I'm thinking of this. We went off Raw last week, yesterday. I mean, there was no mention of anything happening the next week. Nothing.
We get a shot real quick of Vince telling Brisco to be fair and square as a referee. And he thanks him ahead of time and shakes his hand for being fair and square. Yeah. So then we have the main event, Austin versus Goldust. Briscoe's the referee. I popped so huge. Vince running out, like with the
skipping.
Oh man, and it's so happy. Like the look on his face, like he's so like and he replaces the timekeeper. And the shots that they kept with him holding that mallet, like he's ready to hit the belt. Just unbelievable. The little touches like that, I don't know what goes into that. I don't think that's something you can teach. I just think it's these guys understanding how to get things over. I don't know, but it's brilliant. So as the match goes on, we're getting the tone set. Briscoe is slow counting if Austin is going for a pin. He's fast counting if Goldust is going for the pin. Match goes on for a little bit. Austin hits the stunner. Briscoe goes to count 1, 2, and then he stops because he's got something in his eye. Dude Love hits the ring. He goes after Austin, throws him outside the ring. They end up brawling on the outside. Vince goes to hit Austin with the title belt. Austin gets out of the way. He nails Briscoe in the head by mistake, splits Briscoe open. So with him getting knocked out, the match ends in no contest. So we go off the air. Briscoe's bleeding. Austin's still the champion. Vince is fired up, and that's the show.
The JR used the line when Vince came out singing ringside, sitting ringside with the hammer and everything, like you said, which was unbelievable. JR used the analogy, it's like George Steinbrenner coaching third base for the Yankees, which I thought was phenomenal. But I wrote here, bro, you believed Austin was going to get screwed. You believe that. Again, compared to next week, okay, is Sheamus going to win the belt again when he shouldn't have had it in the first? It's just stuff like that. And I just wrote like how great was Vince. It's like you said, bro, just sitting there with that hammer in his hand. But again, to go back and really see the guy in his prime is just unbelievable, man. That's why people say I get so sick to my stomach. When detractors try to say, oh, I take credit for the Attitude Era. How could I ever take credit for a performance of a Vince McMahon? How could I ever take credit for a performance of Jerry Briscoe or Steve Austin or Doodla? Like, how could I ever take credit? These are unique, gifted individuals, bro. That we can see now. Not just anybody can play that role. I mean, it's obvious now when you look at who's over. These were gifted human beings all working together. And, it was just unbelievable, bro. Just unbelievable.